Day is finally here. I'm excited. I am excited. Welcome. Good morning to Chapel. Welcome to our first leadership series here for 2023-2024 school year. My name is Robbie Barber, and I am the Assistant Dean of Students. I direct the Diversity and Inclusion Office, and I also direct the Bishop College Scholars Program, who is the sponsor for our leadership series here at Georgetown College. But today's session and today's series is co-sponsored with our marketing department and the Office of Advancement and Alumni Relations. I think Ms. Bethany Langdon is here. Thank you all, Ms. Emily in her absence, Ms. Tricia, Ms. Tammy, thank you all so much because I couldn't have done this today without you all. Thank you all so much. Before we get started, I'd like to ask everyone to please silence their phone so that there's not any distractions. We are live streaming, and we don't want that to go off as we are doing our panel today. Students, I will give you the Nexus credit at the end. So you have to stay until the end, but I will give you your Nexus credit. For order today, I will introduce our panel guest. Our facilitator will moderate the conversation for us. We will allow 10 to 15 minutes at the end for Q&A. And we'll take a few pictures, and then we'll head over to the Jones Hall Nelson Suite for the luncheon. So if you have RSVP'd for the luncheon, immediately after I ask, two of my student guides will guide you all to the Jones Hall Nelson Suite for our luncheon, okay? And we'll head over immediately after the Q&A session. But to just give you a little background on our leadership series, I direct the Bishop College Scholars Program, and when the students first came to Georgetown, a lot of their leadership was just pastors. And so my goal was to introduce them to different types of leadership styles. And so that's how we created the leadership series. And I think I'm in my 6th or 7th year. You know, after so long, you kind of forget. In Club 60, you forget a lot. But that's how we started, and it's just blossomed into this. And so today, I am so excited, y'all. I'm really trying to contain myself, but I am so excited for our guest speakers that we have today. So our facilitator and moderator for today's panel is Mr. Dave Baker. Since 1982, Dave has been a sports anchor, a reporter, accounts executive at WKYT in Lexington. Dave appears on air throughout Kentucky, WKYT lineup of news, sports, special events programming, in addition to hosting a variety of University of Kentucky and SEC televised events. He celebrated his 41st year at WKYT on April the 27th, 2023. That deserves a hand clap. Yes. And he's still there, y'all. And he was awarded the Kentucky Broadcasters Association Golden Mike Award in the fall of 2022, signifying his induction into the KBA's Hall of Fame. He is a 1982 graduate of Georgetown College. That's almost as good as the 41 years. Yes. And so next month during homecoming weekend, he'll be honored as a Georgetown College Distinguished Alum Award winner. So please help me welcome Dave back to campus with a warm Georgetown College welcome. Next we have joining us is our very own Coach Chris Briggs. Chris has been the men's basketball coach since 2011. There you go, you can clap. Hey, yes. Yeah. This is the basketball team section, y'all, over here. Yeah. He also served as the assistant basketball coach from 2007 to 2011. He earned a bachelor's in communications from the University of Kentucky in 2004, as well as a master's in kinesiology and health promotion in 2006. Coach Briggs has earned 2 national tournament titles, 3 national tournament finals, and 2-time NAIA Coach of the Year. Can we show our appreciation for Coach Briggs with a warm Georgetown College welcome? All right, and for the speaker of the hour, none other than Coach Tubby Smith. Yes, he is you can clap. Coach Tubby is a native of Scotland, Maryland, where he started his coaching career at Great Mills High School, his high school alma mater, before moving to Hope County High School in Rayford, North Carolina. He had 3 assistant coach stops at VCU, South Carolina, and Kentucky before earning his first Division I head coaching job at Tulsa in 1991. In 1997, Coach Tubby went back to Kentucky to serve as the head coach and led the Wildcats to the 1998 National Championship. He was also the head coach at Minnesota for 6 seasons and turned around a fledgling program at Texas Tech in 3 seasons before moving to Memphis in 2016. Coach Tubby returned to his alma mater, High Point University, in March of 2018 to become the 12th men's basketball head coach in program history after serving as the head coach at Memphis for 2 seasons. He was inducted into the University of Kentucky Athletic Hall of Fame in 2013 for coaching and was also inducted into the High Point University Athletics Hall of Fame in 2016 as the former standout player. He has been named National Coach of the Year 3 times, 2003, 2005, 2016, Conference Coach of the Year 6 times, 1994, 95, 98, 2003, 2005, and 2016, and was honored with the John R. Wooden Legends of Coaching Award in 2016. Coach Tubby led Tulsa to a pair of Sweet 16 appearances in 1994 and 95 before moving to Georgia, where he accumulated a 45-19 record in 2 seasons. Over his career, Coach Tubby secured 262 to an 83 record with 5 Sweet 16 trips to the 10 NCAA tournament appearances in 10 seasons. He has made 20 postseason appearances as a head coach, including 9 Sweet 16 and 4 Elite 8 trips. Coach Tubby has mentored 18 student athletes who have gone on to play in the NBA, including 13 national draft picks. Can you guys help me give Coach Tubby a warm Georgetown College welcome? At this point, I will turn it over to Mr. Dave Baker, and we will begin our session for today.
Great. Thanks, Robbie. I appreciate this. I always am really careful because I'm really loud with these things, so I make sure they're turned down first. Good morning. It is great to be here. This is a really different experience for me. Back when we had this thing, it was called chapel, and I was never in here by this time. I normally just snuck in, at the end to make sure that I was counted as being here. And they were nice enough, Dr. Allen was nice enough to have a parking spot out front. Normally I'd just get drug over to the dean's office instead of giving a parking spot. So this is a real honor for me. And it's an honor to be here with Tubby and Chris, 2 guys that I've known a long time, and to be back here. And I don't want to start naming names, but Tubby, do you know our mayor, Bernie Jenkins? Bernie probably refereed games for you when you were here. Yeah, that I knew you. He's never forgotten an official. That's exactly right. So like when everybody was going to Florida and everything when I was in school, my last spring break at Georgetown, the mayor was refereeing the Sweet 16, and he was one of the best refs in the business. And so there were a couple of us who might have kind of piled in his room for the weekend of the Sweet 16 and spent the weekend with him. And just so many great people and great friends here, and it's a pleasure to be here. We're here to talk about leadership today. And leadership, you'll find, and I know many of you know, it takes a lot of different forms. And there are people that are out there selling leadership books and everything, and there's nothing wrong with those, right? Okay, but it's more than that. It's something that's got to be ingrained with you. And Tubby, we were talking backstage just a little while ago. You had to learn leadership early on, or at least recognize leadership in your family dynamic. Talk about that. Should be.
Am I on?
There you go.
Okay. Well, it's great to be here again. I think I was part of the first series.
Yep, that's right.
When Billy Reed, I don't know who else was on that program at the time when we came to Georgetown. It may have been right here in the chapel.
Right.
I should remember that, being in the chapel. I think everybody prayed for me, and I'm still here. Thank you. No, but growing up in a household with 16 other siblings,
16 including you.
Including me, so it was 17. But right. But the thing is, and I've always based my philosophy on how I was raised as well, and that's love, family, and discipline. And that's what I felt, and we kind of build our leadership around those three things. And my dad was an ex-World War II veteran, wounded, came back home in 1943. He had already had a child, but he came back and took a hit through his leg, and his unit lost 80% casualty. So that means only, out of 100 people, only 20 were not injured or killed. Right. And so he was one of the fortunate ones. But he was a staff sergeant and a machine gunner, so he already I was scared of him because he was an expert marksman, but he taught us a lot of values. And my mom also, rest their souls, it was a beautiful thing. So so that leadership came from those values.
What was the age difference between the 17 of y'all?
Man, why would you ask that question? Like this, man? At my age and stage, it's probably about 27 years.
Wow.
So 27 years, 30 years, my mom, she was either pregnant or, it's the only time I knew her most of the time when you have 17 kids.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did that whole dynamic work? I mean, you talk about love and discipline. I mean, there had to be a lot of both of those, I would think, with 17 kids.
Well, when you talk about leadership, it comes to managing, time management, controlling situations in a home, whether it's, and we all have raised family, or some of us have kids that we've raised, or siblings that we've helped raise, and that's what you learn. I'm the sixth oldest, so there are 11 under me.
Okay.
So helping raise the family was part of it, and I see Chris here, raising kids. And the leadership within the home is, you've got to set an example.
His wife is responsible for the leadership in that home. I can tell you that.
Is that right?
Yeah, look at him nodding. There's no question about that.
But no, that's sort of those three things, and we'll touch on them
Sure,
later.
absolutely.
But certainly, the part about love, obviously, you got to care for one another, and that was the big thing with my family was sharing and caring, and for everyone. You had to share just about everything you had. You only got one toy between the boys at Christmas time.
That's right.
So you took turns, and most of it was a toy that we could all enjoy or use, like a wagon that could actually haul wood in or do something with it. So
you get more than one kid in, right?
And you get more than one kid in. You're right. I could pull 3 and 4 of my sisters and brothers in the wagon. So it's and you grew up on a farm where you learn patience. You learn to take your time, because you can't rush Mother Nature. If you're raising a crop, planting a garden, those same principles are held when you're a leader. The expectations are set, but you know that if you don't weed that garden, you don't cultivate that garden, you don't feed that hog, you don't feed those chickens, you're not going to eat.
That's right.
And the same way with people, when you talk about coaching players, they may not get it the first time, so you have to teach it over and over again until it is. And when you have parents that usually, when it didn't work the first time, my dad would, okay, son, I can remember, and as a kid, you're always trying to rush things. Let's hurry up and get this done so I can go play.
Right.
Go play ball or do something. And I would say to my dad sometime, maybe we're working in the garden, or maybe he's working on the bus or the tractor or whatever he's doing. And I would say, Dad, well, why don't we do it this way? He would look at me and say, yeah, well, that's. He said, Tubby, you might have a point there. There might be a better way to do it. And 2 heads are better than one, even if one's a cabbage head. And for all those years, I didn't know he was calling me a cabbage head. But that's the way.
Oh my God, Briggsy, what was your dynamic growing up? You will be
on there.
There you go.
There we go. Much different than coaches. I didn't grow up on a farm and didn't have those experiences. Grew up my older brother and my, small household, just my parents and us, and growing up, and they just kind of wanted to instill into us, working hard and teamwork, being a good person obviously comes first, and I think that kind of starts with leadership and kind of what I learned from Coach Smith. Just this guy right here, he would treat the custodian and the people, taking care, people serving him food, whoever it was, he would treat them the same way he would treat, the $1 million donors who he was wanting to help build a practice facility or whatever. Anybody just treats people the same way, and just a good person. So, I think from watching him as a college student and wanting to get into coaching, watching the way he handled the pressure of coaching at University of Kentucky, obviously that's, much like Georgetown here, we're expected to be in the mix for a national championship every season, and that's how it is at Kentucky as well, at a much larger level with the media and the national attention. But watching the way he handled that and the way he treated the players, loved the players, looked out for them, made sure they were doing the right thing, kicked them in the butt when they weren't doing the right thing. I've heard many of the pre-practice speeches, and sometimes it'd be 2-3 minutes, and sometimes it'd be 15. And and he's sitting there talking to guys like Keith Bogans and Tayshaun Prince and Jamal McGlure that played 10-15 years in the NBA after playing for him. And obviously they had the God-given talent, but they also had what he instilled in them, to work hard, be a good teammate, do the right thing. And Coach was definitely not afraid to let them know that he was the judge, jury, and the executioner. So we definitely heard my way or the highway plenty of times. And you can do that when you lead with love, like you talked about.
No,
so
you're right. You're right.
Definitely.
And I think it's a great point, Briggsy, that you can lead with love in a different sort of way. I haven't had the athletic background that these guys have had, but some of my greatest teachers and people that have influenced me are my high school coaches and people that I played with, and I was with some this weekend. But my experience with my dad was kind of very similar to Tubby. My dad had an 8th grade education, came from Hazard, and he was working in a paper mill up in southwest Ohio. Wasn't at very many of my games because he was working shift work and everything. And I never heard Dad say, "I love you." He wasn't that kind of guy. He was from that generation. But I know he did. And I've told this story before, but even after I started doing games and everything, most people don't realize it. Mike Calhoun does. There's a bigger pocket of Kentucky fans, Tubby does too, up in southwest Ohio, than there are maybe some people in other parts of the state here, because people moved up there to get jobs in the factories when coal went bad in southeast Kentucky. So my dad, he never asked for a ticket. All the times I was doing things, all kinds of people, Tubby knows this, people ask you for tickets all the time. Briggsy could have made $1 million if he could have gotten his hands on tickets when he was over there, right? But, I mean, the one thing Dad always asked for was these calendars, the schedule calendars. And the only time he ever asked me for tickets was for a guy that used to wait on him at Hardee's every day. And he was going through kind of a rough patch. And even though he never said it, that's the kind of leadership that we can all exhibit each and every day. And I think all of us have been through that kind of thing. And I'm sure you all can relate to the same thing, and it helps mold us into who we are. In terms of coaching, Tubby, it was a different dynamic when you got into coaching. Heck, it's a different dynamic when you got into coaching, Briggsy. I mean, what was it that drew you to getting into this profession?
Well, number one, probably just grateful to get off the farm. I remember we used to go to George Washington Carver, which was an all-black school before they integrated and consolidated schools back in southern Maryland. And so we really didn't have, other than growing up in the, neighbors in the neighborhood. Sure. So I bring that up because that leadership, I remember when I was playing outside and my 9th grade math teacher by the name of Cecil Short just passed away a few years ago. He used to come to games everywhere I was Tulsa, Georgia, Kentucky. But he was my very first coach. And this is what leadership does. This is the kind of man he was. He saw me playing pickup in gym class and said, "Why don't you come out for the basketball team?" I said, "Well, Coach Short, I've got to work. I have chores to do at home. But I want to play. I love to play." I said, "Can you talk to my dad?" My dad drove a school bus. And he said, "Well, I'll talk. You want me to talk to your dad?" I said, "Please." So he came to that bus that afternoon. And I remember him asking my dad to come off the bus. And he was talking to him. My dad get back on the bus. And we're driving down the road. I used to sit behind him and pretend I was driving the bus because that's what I was going to do. My dad was a barber. He worked 3 or 4 jobs. Right. 8th grade education. Yeah, I get it. A farmer. And he said, "Boy, you any good at that basketball? Mr. Short told me you wanted." I said, "You want to play basketball?" I said, "Yes, sir." So you asked me about the coaching aspect of it. I knew at that moment in 1965 that I was going to teach and coach. Now, I had an older brother who was a teacher also, but he's 10 years older than I was, and I knew him pretty well. And he ended up being the superintendent of schools in Southern Maryland, and I had sisters that were teachers, but older than me. But that moment, I knew that I was going to teach.
That guy saw something.
He saw something in me, and that's what leadership does. And he saw something, and I appreciate it to this day. And that's what it's all about: helping people reach their goals and their dreams, no matter who they are. As he mentioned, if it's the custodian, be the best you can be, and then be the best where you are. Make the big time where you are. And I think that's so critical. We were talking about it earlier. What Chris has done here, Coach Briggs has been fantastic. And I came to practice last fall. Yeah, February. Yeah, you guys had a heck of a run there. Congratulations on the year. I mean, it was a heck of a run there, and I knew in watching you guys work out that you do a great job. But it's all about, and someone motivated you, and somebody inspired you, and that's what it's about. You're right. In leadership is helping everyone be the best they can be and achieve their dreams. Just like Chris, wanted to be a coach someday, so you have to give him opportunities, right, to lead, whether it's in camp, coaching camp. Those great days, a little bitty people you learn from the beginning and how to treat people.
I've always heard these stories about coaches that are coming up in their careers where I fired so-and-so like 2-3 times or something. I just had it happen the other day. Coach Lawson, who's been so successful with the UK softball program, she said, "Hey, can you believe so-and-so is actually coaching at UNC Charlotte?" "How many times did I fire that guy?" I said, 2 or 3. And so did you ever fire Briggsy, or did you ever get fired when you were coming up?
All the time, man. He had to be fired so many times. No. No, it's but that it's not you don't have to threaten anyone, but you have to inspire them. Being in a family of 17, discipline was so important, and that's part of the growth process. When you had to get a chore done or get a job done, then you had a certain amount of time to do it. And I think in sports games, they have a clock up there. They just have it's a time, right? So if you have to, for instance, if I had to feed the hogs or feed the chickens or hoe the garden or haul water or whatever it was, I remember my dad was saying, "Now I'm gonna be gone here, and when I come back, I want this done. I want this done by then." Right. And the same way in teaching. If you're in a classroom and you have objectives, you have things you want to accomplish, you have a lesson plan, and the same way on the basketball court or any athletic, you've got to have a objective, a goal, you got to have a purpose, and you have to have a deadline. You only have so many hours. NCAA regulates how much time you can. Right. Didn't used to. No, but they do now, and so and then there's a lot of things that go into leadership. You have a staff, as I had trainers and managers and everyone else, but that was critical. I don't know where I was going with No, that's perfect. And Chris, let me ask you, and I want to ask Tubby this as well, but as you go along in this life, I've always heard it said, and I want to back up just a second, we're not nearly done yet, but if you've heard nothing else today, hear what Tubby just said. Make the big time where you are.
And I mean, if you go through life with that attitude every day, no matter what it is that you're doing, and I've got a knucklehead who's a college freshman now, and as coaches would say, he doesn't have that sense of urgency like I'd like him to have, right? His three sisters always had that. But whatever it is that you're doing, if you make the big time where you are, then when you get to the big time, you're going to be ready for it. But Chris, let me ask you, I've always heard it said, and I can go back to Kenny and to Mike, I heard it said this way, that as a coach, you've got to pat some people on the back and kick some people in the tail. I would say that is probably one of the biggest keys to coaching and leadership. Would you agree?
Definitely, because everybody's not the same. And, one thing Coach Osborne used to say, and I think Coach Smith even used to say it too, it's you got to be fair, but not equal. Some people have different life situations than others. Some people have been through different things than others. Some people have been much more privileged than others. And so you have to, some people need a little more leeway than others. And, we certainly have had guys through our program and back when I was at Kentucky that needed more than others, that needed more motivation, needed more kick in the butt, needed more, maybe they needed somebody to knock on their door to get them up for coach's 6 a.m. workout, and so we would do that as student managers, student assistants. We would try to help these guys along and try to look out for them to make sure it didn't get to him.
Right. No, that's the key for a student manager, right?
Unless it
never gets back to the head coach.
Unless it needed to. If it needed to get to him, it better get to him. And that, you talk about if he ever fired me, there was one time, there was a situation.
Come on, tell us. You don't have to give us names, but come on.
A little partying situation in Lexington late at night, guys doing something they weren't supposed to be doing, and
you were thinking, oh, God, let's hope he doesn't find out.
Well, he found out.
Yeah.
And 3 days later, he looks at me like, you should have told me that 3 days ago, right? And, it wasn't anything terrible. It wasn't major, just college kids being college kids. But obviously, he gave me the stern look, and you're here for a reason. And I need.
It's not the stern look. It used to be called the Tubby glare, is what it was called.
Well, it's again, you have this. He was part of it. Everybody had signed the time management contract.
Right.
Even the managers.
You had them sign an actual contract.
Oh yes.
And what was the gist of it?
It was the goals and objectives, and I would say that these are your goals, not mine. They're reasonable, and they are obtainable. You can achieve these things. So here they are. The 5 areas: your academics. You're here to get an education, not just a degree. But you're in school to get an education. There's a difference between getting a degree and getting an education. I remember my dad, that was one of the things he said, boy, just learn, get an education. The degree will come if you do that. So academically, what do you want to achieve this semester? 3.0, 2.5. A guy coming, I want to get a 4.0. Son, you barely got out of high school. Come on. You think that's reasonable?
That's a stretch goal, Coach.
I know your reach should be beyond your goal should be beyond your reach, but come on, buddy. Let's start. But that's, again, where you have to sit down with some kids and say, look, what's realistic? What's achievable for you at this juncture? And, okay, let's try to get a 2.5. A team goal is a 3.0. So there's some guys on the team that will get 3.8s and 3.5s. And we're going to get our 3.0. And I can say this in front of everybody here. That's one of the things that I helped our teams and my players all graduate.
Yes, you did.
I mean, because... And these were their long-term and short-term goals. Short-term goal is to get to class, if you have a problem getting to class, or make every tutorial session. And make sure that you're ready for every test. Don't be late for anything. Those are, right. I had, when I was growing up, just talk about discipline, I don't remember missing a class. And I had perfect attendance for 12 years in school.
No kidding.
Wow. Yeah, two perfect. Well, number one, you growing up, your dad's a bus driver.
I was getting ready to say, when he's a bus driver, it's tough to miss the bus.
If I missed it going out, I had to catch it going the other way, coming back. But that's so the discipline, long term, short term. What are your goals? And again, the second one would be your athletic or basketball goals, because they all think I'm gonna start. They all want to be, and not to be an NBA player. You know, that's not a, you know, that's not. You want to concentrate on what you're doing today. And so we would really talk about their basketball goals. You might be able to lead us in. How about leading us in assists, rebounds, floor burns, those areas that are going to help us win, and you know, the scoring part of it.
Right.
Maybe your field goal percentage, shooting, right. Your free throw shooting percentage. You want to cut back on. So we have team goals and individual goals, and they were long term and short term. Then we would talk about their career goals.
Right.
You know, not that they want to be an NBA player, so that's where we would have to say, look, maybe let's think about something else. If that doesn't work.
Right. So Briggsy, you chuckled about this. What was it that? It sounds like you had a more personal experience with this than more people did.
I don't know about that. I'll say this. He talked about leading in floor burns. He used to play pickup games with us in Memorial Coliseum back before they built the Joe Kraft Center. And I've seen Coach and both Gigi and Saul, two of his sons, almost getting fights in pickup games over Coach taking a charge or diving on the floor for a loose ball and taking Gigi's legs out.
But as intense as those things were, they were nothing like.
Those my sons. They go like, Dad, come on, man.
But when you played ball, when you started out as an assistant with Patino and Donovan and those guys, I mean, that was all out.
All out war.
And it was early for you, as best I remember.
5:30 a.m.
Yeah, right.
We'd and this is a true story. We'd be in the office all. And this is what. If you're inspired and motivated, you want to be the best, you want to achieve, then you've got to go beyond. We wouldn't get in until like 1 a.m. I wouldn't get home until we get in at 5:30 in the morning. I wouldn't get back to my home until like 1 o'clock in the morning.
But you knew you needed to be there at 5:30.
I knew I needed to be there the next day at 5:30, so I would take a shower. I may have had a shower all day because we played ball. We were doing individual workouts. We were on probation those 2 years, too, by the way, and I don't think a lot of people realize I ever coached at Kentucky before I came back. As a head coach, I was there for 2 years, and we weren't able to be on TV. We couldn't play for the SEC championship. So, but that taught me a lot also. But I go home and shower because we usually would eat at the cafeteria and check on the players and. Excuse me, and then I would shower and put on what I'm going to wear the next day and go to bed.
It's a true story.
I put on my socks, my jock, and my shorts, and my T-shirt. So when that alarm went off, all I had to do was put my shoes, slip in my shoes, and I'm out the door. But
for whatever reason, Rick must have thought that was important for you guys to get together.
Yes.
Like that as a staff.
Again, I think that goes back to having a great staff, having people that trust, loyalty, and the privilege, and it's an honor. When you just look at us out here in this chapel right now. This is too much is given, much is required, and for each and every one of us, there are a lot of people like to be sitting in these seats or being where we are. So, and that's one thing that I was grateful that my dad and my mom, they were always giving people, and he used to be. And that's it. The more you give, I can just tell you, fellows, ladies and gentlemen, the more you give, the more you get, the more you receive. It seemed like it
comes back to you, doesn't it? It comes back to you.
Well, it seems like the more I give, whether it was for charity or helping someone, I got a bunch of relatives and siblings that I try to help. I don't get much back, but that's okay. That's another family. They're family. They expect that. But no, when it comes to just like playing in the American Cancer Society yesterday, or playing in any of the charitable events.
These clubhouses that you did over in Lexington with PG people.
Again, those are the things that you do, and if people don't realize, we funded that for 10 years after I was gone, and now the clubhouse. But that was because that was to reward students that were going from the 6th, 7th, 8th grade. They were learning how to, and this is a true story. This is what this is 1974, my second year as a high school coach at Great Mills High School, a kid by the name of Alejandro Prar. He owns Millennium Farm in Paris, Kentucky now. I hadn't seen him in years, but he was in my gym class, and he wanted to try out for the basketball team at Great Mills High School. A little Hispanic kid from Columbia, South America.
Yeah.
And he was, his dad had just moved to the area, was a civil engineer at the naval base. But he came out for the team, and I said, Rob, years later, I cut him from the team, but I told him, you ought to play soccer. He ended up being a soccer player at the University of Maryland. And he was a heck of a soccer, but I'm the coach here in Kentucky, and Brooks Downing,
sports information.
my sports information director, brings me this Blood Horse magazine. I never really knew what the Blood Horse magazine was about thoroughbred racing. And there's an article in there that Alejandro Prar, they were writing about him, but in the article he talks about how Coach Smith cut him from the basketball team and this and that. But he was saying, and I was the head coach at Kentucky at the time. He goes, but it's the way he did it. And he was the first one to help me develop my foundation. And so I called him. I said, "What?" He said, "Well, Coach Smith, he didn't just post names on the door of the coach's office. He brought us in. He brought me in, explained to me why I didn't make the team." So the guy invested $250,000. He became one of the leaders at Dell. He was on the ground floor when Dell first started. Owns a big old horse farm. But what I'm saying, treat people the way you want to be treated. I mean, at that time,
absolutely.
That was my second year in coaching. Who would have thought this young man would have? So you got to invest in people, and that's what we do as coaches.
Absolutely. Let me ask you a couple others, Tubby, and we want to open it up for questions. You had been an incredibly successful coach, and then you get the call about this job. And it is probably, what do you think? I mean, Notre Dame football, Kentucky basketball, you can talk about all these jobs that you want that have this incredible spotlight on them, but Kentucky basketball is that one. And then as you're considering this, and I'm going to echo what Chris Briggs said. I've never seen a kinder man than Tubby Smith. I mean, I have seen him when my kids were little and we'd be over at gymnastics meets, and he's got everything in the world going on. And he's standing up there on the rail outside the offices talking to the custodial staff. Not for 2-3 minutes. I mean, like 30 minutes. And supporting the gymnastics team and doing that for those of you that saw him at Rupp for so many years. First thing he did when he came out on the court, he went and shook everybody's hand who was working at the scorer's table. People that weren't getting a lot of money, it was a big deal for them, but, he came out to say thanks for giving up your night to be here. But then in addition to all that, you come here as the first African-American coach at Kentucky. How much did that factor into the decision that you and Donna made?
Well, it was tough. I have to admit, it was. I wasn't scared, and I had been here before, so I knew what basketball, what Kentucky Big Blue mystique, or Big Blue magic, or Big Blue was all about. But I'd been prepared, and I think I had a great mentor, not only my father, my brother, but in people like, C.M. Newton. When I was here the first time, that's how I got the assistant coaching job with Rick Pitino the first time in '89, was because we had coached against C.M. Newton's. I was assistant coach in South Carolina, and we upset Coach Newton's he had a great team at Vanderbilt, and they were ranked in the top 10.
Barry Goheen
and
yep.
Will Purdue.
Will Purdue was SEC Athlete of the Year.
Yeah. So we upset them in the Sugar Bowl, and there again, George Felton, who I had worked for, who later became my assistant coach. I worked for George Felton at South Carolina.
Yep.
After the game, C.M. Newton says, "Boy, your defense was outstanding." He goes, "You need to talk to Tubby Smith. He's our defensive coach." But so you never know what people, you don't,
That's right.
and you don't get a second chance to make a first impression.
That's right.
So, and someone's got to be able to help you, and when players would come in, when I took the job here at Kentucky, the first thing I did was meet with each individual player, go see the parents, and I said, "Look, fellows, here's your file." I bring out the file. When we have one-on-one meetings, I said, "All I know about you is what's in this file.
Right.
I'm going to give you a chance to share with me what's in the file." See what I mean? Because there's everything.
How many took that chance?
Huh?
How many took that chance?
Oh, they all did.
They did?
Oh, yeah, they want to know because, Coach, they want to play.
Right.
They want to play at Kentucky. Coach, I had this situation. Oh, this is, and when I open it up, I've already seen what's in it. But
Right.
And some of them I had already recruited. But in coaching, the African-American part of it, being black, and I think this is the comment I made when the media asked me about that, and I said, I just want to be judged on the content of my character.
Amen. Yes, sir.
And not the color of my skin. And so, but it was tough to leave Georgia.
Right.
Because I've been the first African-American coach at Georgia.
That's right. Were you the first African-American coach in the league?
No.
We were talking about that the other day.
I'm not sure.
One of the first. One of the first.
One of the first. But it was, I was coaching my son, Gigi, at Georgia, and we had a pretty good record. So when Coach Newton called me about taking the job here, it was a little bit, how can I say? I wasn't doubtful. I wasn't sure, but I wasn't.
Had to think about it.
Yeah, well, I had to think about it. But it wasn't much to think about after Rick Pitino called me up. He said, "Oh, you out of your freaking mind?" He called me up and said, Coach Newton said you're not sure. He said you're kind of hesitant. I said, well, I'm following the legend. Rick had just won a national championship and just lost in the championship game. And I've got, not only was I coaching Gigi, my oldest son, he was a sophomore at the time, and now Saul was
coming up, right?
Saul was going to red shirt. He'd already, in Athens is a good city, and I'd already moved my family
20 times.
Yeah, 8 times, 7-8 times. We've moved 13 times. Wow. So in my career, it's
and then you had this great job and you messed up and you won your first year, right?
Yeah, that's it.
And then everybody expected it after that,
well,
right?
I think in leadership you've got to teach, especially our young players, and you've heard this before. You got to, first thing you got to have is a image.
Yep.
No one's going to come. You've got a perception because you're leading a program like Georgetown here or Kentucky. What are people going to see when they see? Are you dressing properly, talking properly, leading things? So I think when I go back to content of the character and your versus the color of your skin, I think it's important that people see that this is someone that I want to be around. I want to go to school. I want to play for this man.
Right.
I want to come watch the games he
Yes,
plays.
sir.
The other thing is philosophy. You got to have a system in place. How you going to play? You going to play up tempo? You going to press? You going to stall? You going to do what? How you going to play? And then you got to recruit those people around.
Briggsy, I want to ask you one before we get to questions. So people say that kids are different now. And we've been through all kinds of stuff last several years, right? I mean, there's been everything happening in our world. You've had all this COVID stuff. I mean, do the things that you learn from the people in your life, like Tubby, still apply to these guys?
Great question, and yes, I think so. I mean, like we talked about, it goes back to leading with love and building relationships with them. And I'll be honest, like since the COVID thing and since the last few years, I think kids have gotten better. I mean, we have a great group of guys here. Most of them sitting here in this room. I'll use this example. We 2018, 2019, we won the national title. And we had a young man, and I probably shouldn't say this here, but one of the things they know is that if they miss class, they're going to run to the hospital and back. Which, Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
To the bypass.
I remember the old hospital. I could do that run.
Yeah, and it's, I don't know, what is it, Aiden? 4 miles? So,
Are you saying he would know how long it is?
Here's what I'm saying. I'm getting back to your question about kids being different. 2018, 2019, we had a young man who I love. He ran to that hospital 4 times the first week of school.
First week of school?
First week of school, one guy. Like, how many times are we going to catch you missing class? And after that, he figured it out. He might have done 1 or 2, maybe 3 more the rest of the semester.
If he ran that much, he could run in and out of class without being caught, right?
I was about to just give him to the track team. But he was 6'8", 240, and he was pretty good.
I hear you.
So, but we kept at, I mean, we basically said, you're going to break down or we're going to just send you on, one of the two. And after about second, third week, he figured it out. But I'll say this about these guys and this generation. We just had our first hospital run of the year yesterday. And we've been in
You're
school.
a month in, right?
Yeah.
Come on.
We had 4 in the first week, 4 years ago.
I love that. I love that.
So I think that, this group of guys and I think this generation now understands, doing things the right way, conducting themselves, we have 3 rules with our team. Go to class, don't miss class, be early, which to me, I tell them 5 or 10 minutes early, and every day I see one of them walk into class at 9:29 for a 9:30 class, but at least it's not 9:35, I guess. But
right.
But I'll say hurry up, and then don't embarrass the program. So,
I think that's
knock on wood. Hopefully they keep behaving, but right now they're doing a great job. So.
These folks have had so many great influences in their life. I just want to take a personal moment. Rob Bromley, will you stand up over there? My man Rob Bromley, who was at WKYT for 40 years. I was interning with him, and I think I graduated from here on a Saturday and started on like a Tuesday. And he has taught me so much about being a professional and being a human, and I appreciate you, my friend. It's great to have you. Let's see. Questions? How are we going to do these questions? I'm going to stand up because I'm old, and I can't move around much like I used to. You got a mic back there? Anybody got a question? Raise your hand, and we'll get some questions here. We've got a few minutes for questions. Come on now, surely somebody's got a question. Yes, right down here in the front.
Okay. Hi, Coach Smith. I coach high school soccer, and one thing that I struggle with my players is the outside noise. And obviously, high school is very different, but there's still fans, there's local newspapers and things like that. And just any advice to help tune out that noise, especially being at a big school like Kentucky and pressure and all of that media. How do you encourage your players or you yourself tune out that noise to stay mentally tough?
Yeah, it's obviously with social media today, it's hard to control because you don't know what they're, and it's unfortunately, a lot of people's lives, their self-worth is wrapped up in what someone else is saying about them. And so you have to you have to instill confidence in them so I think building that family atmosphere. By that I mean having gatherings one of the things that happened to us in High Point with this COVID, for about 2 years, you really couldn't, right. Not that you couldn't, but you wouldn't. It was tough to get everybody together.
That's right.
Everybody's wearing a mask, and you couldn't even bring them over your house lots of time. So I think an important thing would be, the cookouts, anytime you can have. I know you're there with them in a capacity of practice and that type of thing, but off the field, I think that's the critical part to helping them appreciate who they are and that you're there for them as a family. Not just you as a head coach, but everybody that's a part of the team and a part of the organization.
I want to ask Tubby, raise your hands now for other questions, but I want to ask him when he talked about time management earlier. This is one of the greatest examples I've ever seen of time management. Coach Calhoun, you know what I'm talking about. So they're playing Duke in the regional final down in Florida. And it's kind of a struggle. And all of a sudden, Coach K has to use all of his timeouts. And then talk about that sequence. I think it's one of the greatest coaching moves in NCAA history.
Well, I wish I could take all the credit for it.
But this is why I want you to bring it up.
Yes, because it was just out of necessity and because of what had happened. It was back, and I see they're bringing that back now that you can jump out of bounds and call timeout. they did away with that. But at that time, we were playing them, and Shane Battier, he's diving on the floor, calling timeout. They had another kid, William Avery, he's jumping out of bounds, calling timeout.
Probably flopping, too. That's what those Duke guys do.
Well, I don't know about that, but I
flop
know
a lot.
I tell the team, I say, fellas, those timeouts belong to me, the coaching staff. Okay, just so you understand. So don't be wasting these timeouts by jumping in the air or diving. When it was a loose ball and they called timeout, it was going to be their jump ball.
Right.
So now you get to the 9-minute mark, 10-minute mark of the game, we're down 17.
Here we come.
And we're starting to press and come back, and they don't have a timeout.
That's right.
So I jumped up to call a timeout because I thought we were getting, I need to call one of my staff, Sean Finney, or one of them, Mike Sutton. Someone said, Coach Sutton, don't call timeout. I said, what are you talking about? They don't have any more. And they said, let's just press them and run them. So we were dubbed the comeback cats because we had to come back from behind about 15 times that year. Seriously.
Oh, no question.
Well, in the game before, we had to come back against Utah in the championship game. We were down 12 or 13 at halftime. But I use this term from the beginning, the most insignificant score, not just in sports, but in life, is the halftime score.
That's right.
Don't think it's never over. It's never over until it's over. So you don't ever quit. Don't ever give up. The opportunities are, so when you're down 17 with 9:30-something to go in the game, folks, they knew Jeff Shepard, Cameron Miller, Allen Edwards, all those guys, and Wayne Turner. That was our mantra all year long.
Big buckets from Cameron Mills in that game.
We're going to come back. And
right.
We did.
And the reason I wanted to bring that up is Bobby Knight used to bounce around all the time. And, somebody asked him about his assistants or something. He said, why do I care what you say? But Tubby's leadership style, those guys, they may not have been equal partners, but they were part of the staff. And in that big situation like that, for an assistant to pop up and say something like that, wouldn't have happened unless that man had given him the leadership love to let him know
it goes back to trusting one another,
yes,
and believing in one another,
yes,
and loyalty and love, again, family. You ought to be able to say, hey, this is what's going on in the family, and this is what you need to do, Coach.
You're right.
You might not like it at the time, but, hey, I'm accepted.
Somebody got one? Go ahead.
Just want to share a story. Not really what's up, Coach?
What's up? How you been?
What's up? Just want to share a story. My deceased wife, Marcia, had the pleasure of working. We had the pleasure of working and serving. She was the director of the Wildcat Lodge while Coach was there, and we actually had Coach Briggs as a student manager. I just want to share a story real quickly about what a tremendous human being that Coach Smith is. And Chris was telling you, he was in that building all the time. Probably too much for some of the guys, but but which Chris was talking about, Coach knew every player, knew every manager, but Coach knew my desk workers, our cooks, our custodial staff, and treated everyone amazingly. I lost, my wife became sick. I lost her, it'll be 4 years next month. We had not seen Coach probably since 2011 when the leadership series was here. We come over, visited with him briefly that night. So she passed away on a Saturday. 2 days later, on a Monday morning, worst day of my life, I look down at my phone and I've got a call from Tubby Smith. We'd not seen Coach, and Coach left to go to Minnesota in 2007. And Marcia, looking down, I know she was not happy, because she loved Coach. But for someone to call and to reach out 10 years later from when or 8 years later from when, phenomenal human being. We also, people asked me, because we were around 3 different coaches there, Coach Smith, Coach Gillespie, and Coach Cal, and people ask me all the time, just, hey, quickly, can you give me a summation? And the thing about Tubby Smith is, phenomenal coach, Hall of Fame coach, legend, but even a better human being.
Amen.
And he cares for all of you guys. And I will always appreciate that, and Chris will tell you, any of the guys, it didn't matter if you were Rajon Rondo, Tayshaun Prince, Keith Bogans, or a walk-on, Coach treated you the same. He expected the same from you, and he treated just everyone just amazingly. And to talk about humble, we come in one night and I think we played pretty poorly one night, and Coach is in the building, and I've kind of walked by, and Coach is actually wiping out a microwave. And I'm like, what is he doing, man? And it was something that needed to be done. And that's just Coach. And I said, Coach, what are you doing? I was like, we can do that. And he quipped something like, I'd rather do that, Mike, than watch this game film or something. But anyway,
right.
Thank you, Coach. I
Thank you,
appreciate
Mike.
it.
Great
We love
seeing
you.
you.
And real quickly, you guys at Georgetown, you have no better leader than Chris Briggs here.
telling you right now.
Amen.
He cares about you guys, and good luck to you guys this season.
Well, you know, that the old saying is, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. Amen. And as soon as you understand that, and as we as people understand that you know, a concern and care for others is beneficial to everyone, to you. It's going to make you feel better because you reached out or because you smiled or said something positive that particular day to someone. I'm sorry.
No, you're
No
good.
question.
You got another one?
Yeah, to the coaches, how do you, and how did you, and Coach Griggs, how do you manage the interaction of the community as they want to engage with the team? Are there guidelines, that you had in place, have in place? Because I'm sure there's a lot of community members that want to engage, but just curious, how do you kind of manage that part?
Well, I think I guess you're probably talking more about Kentucky players in Lexington being celebrities and
You encourage it, don't
part
you?
of it.
You encourage the community.
Right.
to
We
interact
want
with
we want our guys to get out in the community and be seen and do things and be a part of it. I told them when they first got here, when school started, make friends with everybody on campus and support them because you want them to support you. And told them when freshmen going to freshman seminar, freshman orientation, some of your best friends in your life you might meet. You're probably going to meet at freshman orientation, as you move into college and start college. So, here we encourage it. I think what you're asking is maybe more Lexington being kind of local celebrities as a Kentucky player type of thing, or no? No?
Just the community as a whole that want to engage with the team. How do you encourage that? Do you put guidelines in place? Do you kind of manage that? I'm just curious, how do you manage it as a leader?
I think we encourage it, obviously, as long as it's, good things. We had a young man here a few years ago named Remington Williams who unfortunately was killed in a car crash, but he was active in every group on campus. He led our guys. He got them into doing a lot of community service projects, different, food drives, toy drives, things like that we've always kind of been a part of. And obviously anytime you can get your players and your young men out in the community and getting to know people and people want to help. We have a couple great professors here who will go above and beyond. Many great professors here who will go above and beyond, to help these guys out. There's a family here in town, the Shotwell family that's had our guys over to their house for dinner for years now, going back to when I was an assistant coach. So it is great to have a great campus community and people here around town who do care and help you to guide and mold your young student athletes into good people.
It's any time you have something whether it's a Veterans Day or just like 9/11, you probably should get involved or something of that nature. Where anything that we would invite them people invite them to service or churches and the thing. So being involved, and we would encourage that as well to all of our players.
Tubby, all kinds of people coming around the UK team, and it provided me with one of the highlights of my career. I've been blessed to do a lot of different things, but we're out at the Final Four in '98, and it's Sunday between the semifinals and the championship game. And I was a bit younger, obviously, in '98. I'm out stretching, getting ready to go for a run, and somebody comes up behind me and says, "What are you doing?" And I said, well, I'm getting ready to go for a run. And the voice says, well, can I go with you? And I turn around, I'm like, well, if you want to. And so literally there were thousands of people in San Antonio, Texas, wanting to know what Ashley Judd was doing jogging with this fat guy. and I laughed all over San Antonio, Texas. But I mean, it was not unusual. It was all the network people. It was anybody that wanted to be anybody was around that team, not only because it was a great team and a great program, but because of that man and his leadership. And so that's exactly what they were drawn to. I think our time is at a close. I want to take one personal. My wife Donna is here for the first time, and I wanted to bring her to show her what a great place Georgetown was, and we appreciate you being here.
Any other questions?
You want to take another one or not? It's your call. Anybody got one final question? Yes. Good question.
Wow. Very good question. You know, there's so many moments, and they all are lessons, and you learn and you share, and it's an accumulation, just like going to school. You know, you had to learn how to add and subtract before you got to division, before you got to multiplication. And so sports is the same way. You have the basic fundamentals of, and I think that's huge. When you talk about the fundamentals in sports or in anything you do, you have to have, and when you have to be dedicated, you have to have a great work ethic. I think I'm trying to figure out when that moment.
Tubby, I think one of your greatest moments individually is John Stewart from Indianapolis, right? Am I right about that?
Yes.
Young man, unbelievably talented player that had committed to Tubby.
It was top 25, 30 player.
I think he was like top 10.
He would have taken us over the top again.
That's right. Had a heart attack and died during a high school game over in Indiana. And what Tubby did for his team and for that family and continued to do for that family.
I just talked to Felicia Stewart just a month ago.
Right.
But John Stewart was a young man, 7 feet tall, 275, 280 pounds. He was a top player. He was going to be in that same class with Jules Kamara and Marvin Stone, who's passed away.
That's exactly right. That's right.
And that was going to be, legitimately, I thought we could win another or two championships with him because he was that good. But he passed away in the quarterfinals in the Indiana
State High School
tournament.
That's right.
We were playing in New Orleans, but we ended up, you're talking about when we took the whole team.
Yes.
We flew the team to Indianapolis. So did we bus them there? We flew. We flew there, and it was,
You went to Indianapolis.
Yeah. It was a great, going home, it was a great memorial service, and they had it at the high school there in Lawrence North.
That's right, North Lawrence High School.
High school. Right. And those are moments that you...
Basketball takes a back seat.
Absolutely. And so you're right, that was in 2000.
That's right.
And the other one was a special moment is when they honored him in 2003, when Tayshaun, 2004.
That's right.
We honored him and brought his parents in.
Out of dry in the house.
And gave him his jersey, which we all would do for all the Kentucky players.
Right.
Alongside of Tayshaun Prince and Keith Bogans, the kids that had graduated that night. So that was you bring that moment up, but there are a lot of moments. I think coaching my kids was special, especially looking up in the stands. And
oh, sure.
that was tough coaching that. Those are really special moments. But it's hard to beat that winning the national championship.
Isn't it though? That one never goes away, right?
That one never goes away.
Briggsy, anything for you before we get on out of here?
No, same thing. Just winning those championships is special, but obviously the relationships you build with your guys and the family you become, and the hard work you put in. That the things you overcome. I'll say that for all the athletes in here. It's not going to be easy. Nothing good's easy. Nothing good is going to be easy. You're going to have to work for it. You're going to have to fight through things. 2013, we win the national title that year, but we started off 1-4 in the conference, and we're playing with 7 players at Cumberland, Tennessee, a couple guys hurt, a couple guys knuckleheads, guys out of the lineup, and win a game with 7 players and go on to win the national championship. So, fight, overcome, never give up, keep working, stay together. And we tell our guys, be brothers, look out for each other, push each other, go after each other in practice, and love each other after practice, and always give it your best and keep plugging.
2 final things from me. For those of you who've never heard before and never had a chance to talk to Kenny B. Davis here, the greatest, certainly the greatest basketball player and maybe the greatest athlete, and certainly now in his later life, the greatest cyclist to ever be produced by Georgetown College. If you've never heard his talk about the 1972 Olympic team and the leadership he showed as the captain of that team, it is something that'll literally make the hair stand up on the back of your neck. And I just want to say one more thing before we go. Sometimes things aren't great all the time, right? You came in, Rick went to the NBA, you were able to win another national championship, put your own stamp on it. But most of the time when there's a coaching change, it's because things aren't good, right? I mean, sometimes things aren't working out. And Dr. Allen came in here in a situation that wasn't the best. And she has exhibited unbelievable leadership from day to day. And you guys are so blessed to have her as your president. Thank you all very much.
Can we give one more round of applause? Such an amazing, amazing, amazing leadership to them. I think they deserve a standing ovation, you guys. Can you all stand with me as we say thank you to them? I think they deserve a standing ovation. So the moment that our students have been waiting for, let me give you all the Nexus code. Y'all got your phones out? All right. 110659.
What is this?
Nexus code. Might have been a CEP for you.
Somebody doesn't count? Do they get a code?
Yeah, that you get codes. You get codes, yeah. Let me give that code one more time, 110659. For those that have RSVP'd for the luncheon, if you all can go ahead and head over to the Jones Hall Nelson Suite, that would be great. Thank you all.